He suddenly got up. "I will kill him!" He stormed off, but Uche held him back. "Whatever we do now, we have to tread carefully. Helen's life depends on it." And then it dawned on him the kind of grave danger Helen was in. Chief Abayomi would do anything in his power to make sure this video never came to light. It didn't matter whether Helen gave him the evidence or not, he would kill her. He would never let her live, not when his ambition of becoming the state governor is finally coming to be. Chief Abayomi has an inner caucus meeting with Dad in a couple of hours, where Dad will present him as his choice, Uche revealed. "Then we better let Dad see this." Chuck picked up his car keys. "I will drive," Stanley said, taking the keys from him. Just as they were about to leave, Mma rushed in. She looked at their faces and covered her face with her hands. Uche went to her. "We have a lead and a plan. I will fill you in on the way." Mma nodded and walked over to Chuck and embraced him. He held on to her, taking the comfort he did not realize he needed. Chuck and his entourage walked into Chief Okoha's glorious living room. Chief Okoha knew immediately something was wrong. "What happened? When is Chief Abayomi coming here?" Chuck asked. "In less than an hour. What's going on?" "Good. You need to see this before he arrives." Chuck picked up the remote control and cast his phone to the smart television. Only Mma's short gasped, and then cry could be heard. Chuck turned away. He knew he couldn't see it a second time without losing control. He didn't let it finish playing, only till they got the meaning of the video. He turned it off. "Oh my goodness!" Rose exclaimed. "Where is Helen?" Chief Okoha asked. "Kidnapped, and we know who have her. Abayomi would be here in less than 30 minutes. Chief Okoha glanced at his watch. "So we have precisely that to come up with a plan that will be very harmless to Helen." Meanwhile, Helen is looking for the USB or pretending to look for it. What she was doing in actual sense was playing for time and looking for an opportunity to escape. But escape was looking more and more like a dream, as the shed had one entrance and no windows. She let out a frustrated breath. How long this would go on, she did not know. How long before they realized she was fooling them, she could not tell. But as far as it was working, she would go on doing it, because there was no way she was taking them to Chuck's house, where the USB truly was. Suddenly, she became grateful for the prompting that made her leave her red purse behind, for Chuck to have a little of her to remember. She felt Al's evil presence behind her. "Why are you stopping?" Al asked. "Look at this place. Nothing is where I left it. How am I supposed to find anything here?" "Don't play smart with me, Cat. You must have put it inside a bag before hiding it. So find the bag. I don't need to tell you what will happen if you don't find it." His phone rang and he left to answer it, gesturing to his second to keep an eye on her. Helen went back to her pretend work with trepidation, praying a miracle would somehow happen. "That was Chief," Al said. "We have new instructions to kill you if you don't find it in the next 30 minutes. He smiled at her and left whistling, like the idea of killing her had put him in a good mood. Heaving a sigh, Helen went back to looking for a USB she would never find, but she would rather die than take these dangerous men to Chuck's house. Chief Abayomi entered the living room and smiled when he saw both Uche and his friends. "Full house, I see," he smiled, but no one could return his smile. "Is all well?" "We have a crisis on our hands. Chuck's girlfriend was kidnapped this morning." "What?" Chief exclaimed. "Who could have done such a thing? How much did they ask for?" Uche pressed Chuck's thighs to get him to stick to the plan and not give in to the urge they all had to bloody the floor with the whistle. No ransom yet." Chief Okoha picked up the remote control. "Security is such a big issue in this country. especially in this state. I am so sorry, Chuck. I hope she's found. When I become governor, security is the first thing I will tackle. He turned to Chief Okoha, who was staring at the television, and suddenly, Abayomi gasped. Chief Okoha switched off the television after he had gotten his attention. He stared at Uche's father in shock. He looked around the room in fear, and suddenly he bolted. But the police commissioner and some of his boys were behind him. Chief Abayomi stood at a place trembling. "The way we are going to do this is easy," Chuck said. "Ask your men to bring Helen, and I will hand the USB over to you." "I would be a fool to believe that," Abayomi said. "See, Chief, I have publicly said to anyone who cared to listen that you are the best man for the job. You are not the only one whose reputation is on the line here. I too have a name to protect." Abayomi stared at them. "You would just give me the evidence just like that? Why should two good men lose their name over an insignificant girl my son fancies for now? We would appease him by giving him back the girl, and then we would destroy the evidence. We have all agreed. This is the best way. We all get what we want." Helen was tired of pretending. If they were going to kill her, they should do it and get it over with. The anticipation was already killing her faster. It was pathetic. Waiting for death, she thought sorrowfully. She also knew that she would never be able to escape. No one knew where she was. No one was coming for her. The only way to stay alive would be to take them to Chuck's house and get the red purse. But that was not an option for her. She had Al finish a conversation and began walking towards her. The 30 minutes must be up, she thought. Her last moment on earth. What did she regret? Not saying goodbye to Chuck, never getting the chance to tell him how much she loved him, never having the chance to make love to him like she dreamed she would. Tears rolled down her cheeks as Al walked towards her meaningfully. She squeezed her eyes shut as he bent over her. "Get up," he said to her. "If you are going to shoot me, you will have to do it here, because I am not going anywhere with you." He laughed. "Don't worry, Kat. It's not time yet. But when it is, I will choose the time and place, and there is nothing you can do about it. Let's go." He pulled her up and they left. Helen sat at the back of the SUV and tried to make sense of what was happening. She didn't know if she was grateful she had more time to devise a plan or sad because she was tired of waiting for the inevitable to happen. She heaved a sigh when the car stopped and looked out of the window and gasped with horror when she noticed that they were outside Chief Okoha's mansion. "What are we doing here? Take me back. We can't be here. The flash drive is not here." Helen was losing it, and she knew it, but at that point, she did not care. There was no way she was bringing this evil here. "I lied. The drive was not in my house. Turn the car around and I'll take you where it is, please. After we see Chief, we were asked to bring you here, and that is what we are going to do." The gate opened and they drove in. Helen did not understand why Abayomi would bring her here. Was he holding Chuck's parents hostage? Would he use them to force her to give him the drive? She did not have time to really think about it as she was dragged out of the car and pulled to keep up with them as they walked to the door. Everyone in Chief Okoha's living room was quiet and waiting in anticipation. The door opened. Al and his partner walked in. The scene was not what Helen expected, but everyone was sitting calmly as if waiting. Waiting for what? She wondered as her eyes traveled the room. The men still had their guns trained at her back, so there was nothing she could do but stand there. "Abayomi, your boys." Chuck gestured to their guns. "Did you bring your guns into Chief Okoha's house? Drop those guns now." Confused, Al and his second removed the guns from her back and dropped them. No one was more confused than Helen, but she didn't have time to dwell on it. In another minute and in a blur, Al and his partner were arrested. Helen, oh Helen, Mama cried, coming towards her to embrace her. You don't know how much I've been afraid. Helen returned her embrace, but briefly. She was trying to understand what was going on. Chuck pulled her into his embrace next. Thank God, he said. She felt his kiss on her hair and she stiffened. Helen knew she was not the Helen he thought she was. She had done things to get her revenge on Chief Abayomi. She had done things as wicked as what he did to her. Chuck noticed her body stiffening at his embrace, but he put it down to the horror she had to endure and nothing more. Chief, what's going on? This was not our agreement, Abayomi said quietly, watching the police take his men away. A deal is a deal, Chief. Chuck took out the drive from his pocket. The evidence, as I promised. No, Helen cried. No, you can't hand it over to him. You don't understand. You don't. Helen tried to fight Chuck. Helen! Chuck was forced to shout. Trust me. He handed the drive to Abayomi. Helen stilled her struggles and watched with growing anxiety as Abayomi took the drive and turned to leave. But his way was blocked by the police. Chief, what is this? Abayomi cried. How did you think that you would rape a 13-year-old and just like that, I would let it go? How dare you think that I belong to the same depraved moral group as you? Take him away. The policeman pried the drive from his hands and handed it back to Chuck. Now you understand, Helen. All that was done so he could bring you back without any harm. It's over. You are free. Free? I don't. You will be thrown into the darkest hole and would never be able to come up for air if I have anything to do with it, Chuck vowed. You watched the video? Helen asked, looking at their faces. You have nothing to be ashamed of, Rose said quickly. Abayomi is the shameless one. Don't I know that? Helen walked away from Chuck and turned her back to them. If you know that, then we don't understand, Chuck said, remembering her stiffened body when he hugged her. I have my memories back. You don't know what I am, what I have done. I was so full of vengeance. I ate, I lived, and dreamed of the moment I would kill him. My whole life before I lost my memories was filled with nothing but getting revenge, and I have sought that through the darkest ways. I am not worthy of you, Chuck. I am not worthy of a moral family like yours. You all should have nothing to do with me. Helen, Ma began. My name is not Helen. I am not Kat either. My name is Ehi. I am from Benue State. Helen began to sob as she sat down. Ma tried to go to her, but Helen would not allow her. Please don't, or I would not be able to do this. This much I owe you all, getting to know who you have all allowed into your lives. The earlier I do this, the earlier I would leave you all in peace.
In the still of the night, I think of you. My heart beats with every thought